The Roses Theatre in Tewkesbury.
Tewkesbury's theatre first opened its doors in
reopens its
1970.
doors today after a periodic closure.
Today, the Roses Theatre in Tewkesbury opened its doors.
Camera is rolling. Just going to do a very, very quick audio sync up.
So my name's Elaine Cash. My memory is from the 30th of October 1975, and I was working at the then Riverside Hotel, which is where Princess Anne had her evening meal. Buzz around town was just that it was Princess Anne and she was coming to Tewkesbury, and that she was opening the theatre. The day was really exciting. We'd been told that she was coming for a meal. We had, after lunch closed, we had a big police presence surrounding all around the hotel, the other side of the river, swept the building to make sure that everything was all okay, and then we were all locked in. When she arrived, we had been told how to curtsy. We all stood in a row and how to greet her. She was taken up to the lounge by the head waitress, and when Madeline went up and took her tea and biscuits, she found her shoes off, legs over the side of the seat, watching her favourite soap. She came down and had her evening meal. And then afterwards, because we were just around the corner, walked over to the Roses here to do the opening. That was kind of like my my little party piece for quite some time, and still is, because I can kind of like say, yeah, I served Princess Anne her dinner. So yeah, that's sort of like stayed with me forever. So yeah.
First memory I have of the Roses was 1971, when it was a building site. Or it looked like a building site, but actually it was an archaeological site, because the local archaeologists, who I got to know very well, were finding all sorts of interesting Roman remains under here. It was a Roman town long before the abbey actually came. And they found a sarcophagus which now resides under the care of the Borough Council. I was working with a amateur dramatics group out at Overbury, and it was advertised that there was going to be a pantomime. I went along to the auditions thinking, well, I can be in the back row of the chorus or something like that, because I really didn't want to be too prominent. Being a local GP was a little bit difficult. And they said, no, could I be considered doing one of the major parts? And I thought, well, I'll just find out from my partners, and they were quite supportive. And so when it came to auditioning, I was given the part of Widow Twankey, and I thought, well, here's a chance to be an absolute crazy, the last time I could do this kind of thing. A rather interesting spin-off from all that came literally the next year. I was not only a GP, but I did anaesthetics, and one of the lot of anaesthetics I did was for the local dentists, put children to sleep. Or adults to sleep while they had their dental extractions. And in those days we used to do it in the dentist's surgeries. And one day I was about to give a dental anaesthetic when Mother brought in a young girl who promptly burst into tears. And when I said, oh dear, what's the matter? You know, sorry about that. And Mother said, well, I'm terribly sorry. I bribed her by saying Widow Twankey was going to put her to sleep. I wasn't in my costume.
I was 12 when I came along to see the performance by Eric Morecambe, being interviewed by Stan Stennett, his very good friend. And I came with my mum, and we had quite good seats. We were quite near the front. And I was very excited because we used to watch, obviously on the telly, you'd see Morecambe and Wise all the time, and they were great favourites of my mum and dad.
Of course, he was an international star. He had been off the stage and off the screen for a number of years because of his heart problems. So the opportunity to see an international star, even though he was without Ernie Wise, of course he was on his own, was fantastic. I had just taken over as the town mayor when Eric came here, and so I thought, well, I really have to come. And unfortunately, I was on call for our our practice at the time.
And I just remember laughing all night. It was brilliant. And then right at the very end, he picked up a drum that was on stage and was whacking it really hard and marching around the stage, which we were all falling about laughing at.
And then he went on the drums and did the drums, and he was rushing around. I was thinking, take it easy, Eric. You've had heart surgery. He'd had heart surgery not very long before, and we'd known he'd had at least one, if not two, heart attacks before. Anyway, he did that, and then came back on the stage and waved to everybody, and there was much cheering and clapping. Then he went off and did his usual little thing about one arm and one leg coming around the curtains.
And then he suddenly went, "Oh, blow this," and stormed off the stage, which we all thought was just part of it. But we didn't realise, someone came out and said, "Is there a doctor in the house?" Everyone's still laughing.
The stage manager looked out from his corner and pointed at me because he knew where I was and beckoned me on the stage. I knew there was something that was up, and rushed up on the stage, and he'd obviously had another heart attack. I think it was the 6 o'clock call I had from I forget which newspaper it was, but they said, you know, he did die at 4 o'clock in the morning. I said, "Oh, thank you for letting me know." But you know, the hospital wouldn't have let me know because he wasn't my patient as such. I brought him in, but we found out later that yes, he just had another fatal heart attack, and they couldn't resuscitate him.
So back in the at the beginning, when my first memories here, we had staff such as Jenny, who was manager of the theatre. Stan Stennett, he kind of operated the theatre as part of his chain of theatres that he had around the country. Stan's lease came to an end in 1993, and I can remember there being a bit of a fight from Stan to keep it going, because he ran on a commercial basis. Actually, he was kind of making money, didn't really have that much support from any kind of council funding, which is kind of true now as well. But he ultimately didn't get, his lease didn't get renewed. And so the team was made redundant. So my mum was made redundant, Joyce, Jenny, all these people who had been working hard for the theatre, they were all made redundant. And I can remember the last film that Mum showed here was Beauty and the Beast. And I can remember seeing on the back row, I think with Joyce, maybe Jenny, and just, I could feel like a sad presence that this is kind of it. There was an unknown future for the theatre. No one knew who was going to come in or where it was going to go. That was it. Yeah, as a 6-year-old, that was quite a bit of a big impression on me that, you know, nothing's forever really.
The last film was Beauty and the Beast, and I think the television cameras came from ATV, and they showed all our family were in there, and then I just had to, we put the film on and we closed the curtains, and they said that's the last time these curtains will be closed. And when it was closed for 18 months, 2 years, I couldn't drive past it. I've got all shivery. I couldn't drive past the cinema. You know, it was such a, and is a big part of our lives. All of our family are all involved in it. You know, Steve being a projectionist, both my children were in the pantos, all the pantos. My daughter Debbie got engaged here. She had a little video of all her memories of film memories that on a little screen showing. We all got engaged, she got engaged here, so it was just a big family concern.
So after a period, there was another company that ran it for a bit. They went into liquidation, and that's when the theatre completely closed down. It was on my birthday, in '95 or whatever it was. So yeah, that was it was a big loss. You could tell that there was a loss to the town. Not only jobs, but also just the theatre's gone. That'd been here for 20 odd years at that point. So there was a fight to save it, and that's when the Theatre Trust was created and became a charitable trust. And a guy called Rod Lever, he was our first chairman, and he set up the trust with a load of people, and that's when it was pushed to reopen. And that's where we are now, to be honest, in the same setup. We reopened in '96, so we had a trial period. There was half term, February, March half term in '96. Had a week where we showed films, put some shows on, and Bob Hamlin was our first theatre director under the trust. And his words were, let's just see how it goes, see if it's going to work, if people still want to come to the Roses. And they did. It was packed. We were sold out for every film, every show, and it was like, yep, okay, we're going to carry on.
So we're on the 22nd of July, and it's 2007, and it's a Friday, and the building's sort of winding down a bit like they do at the end of the week. And then suddenly I sort of noticed that there was a bus parked in the road outside the Roses, which was a bit weird. Nothing was moving. So went and had a look and saw that there's an enormous traffic jam all the way down the high street, and people were buzzing with this idea that the water had broken into the town, which panicked the staff. Everybody disappeared and left two of us behind. One was me, who was working at box office, and Honor Hoskins, who was working with the youth theatre. So the first thing we had to do was work out what to do with the very important artist who was coming and was filling the auditorium with people, and lots of money for the theatre, and nobody perhaps could get here. That was the real worry, that there wouldn't be an audience. And then it became clear that there wouldn't be an audience, but we couldn't cancel the show because Deborah, the director, if she cancelled the show, it meant that we had to pay. We had to wait for him to realise that he wasn't going to be able to get on stage here. And then we could cancel everybody. 374 people had to be told that they couldn't come to the Roses. And people were really belligerent, some of them. They were saying things like, "But I'm on the way already." "Yeah, but you can't get into the town." "No, we'll be fine," said the man from Kent, who was coming up all the way here with his family in the car. "Please don't come, because you can't get into Tewkesbury."
I guess something that stands out in my mind hugely is 13 years ago, actually this week, my dad passed away from cancer, and he was such a huge part of this theatre, not only through amateur dramatics, but he worked in the bar, he did follow spot on the panto every year, and we had a memorial sort of event for him called When I'm 64, because he was 64 when he passed away, but he woke up on his 64th birthday and said, "I made it, the Beatles song, you know, I've done it." And the Roses let us have the theatre and invite people, and we put on an amazing event. You know, tickets were really sort of fought over in the end. We invited lots of lovely people and lots of bands and musicians, and put on a massive sort of concert in his memory. And all the proceeds went to the Penny Bron Fund for cancer support. And it was just a really important way to mark the end of his life, because he'd been such a huge part of this theatre. So that's always going to stay in my memory, and you know, I'll always be eternally grateful for the theatre supporting that.
Well, some friends had told us about this new comedian, an Australian, who looked at things in a different way, and we thought that was quite intriguing. So when we noticed that he was on here at the Roses, we booked 2 tickets and came on a date night. So we arrived not really knowing what he was going to be like, but we sat down in our seats. The theatre was full. He came on the stage and he sat on the stool, and then after a moment or two he took his shoe off. We thought, this is very strange, because after another moment he took his foot off, and we thought, goodness me, what have we come to see? And then suddenly he started to talk in this wonderful voice he has. And really he was saying, look, I'm disabled, but I'm no different than any other comedian, so let's get on with it. So he put his foot back on and his shoe back on, and we had the most wonderful evening. It was a riot. He was so funny.
I bought tickets this year for the Roses pantomime for my 2 sons and their partners. My eldest son is living in China. He's married to a Chinese girl, and this was going to be her first experience of an English Christmas. and we wanted to make it as traditional as possible for her. So we thought, what's more traditional than an English pantomime? So our daughter-in-law, Vera, absolutely loved the pantomime. She was spellbound by the whole experience. They don't have anything like pantomime in China. They have small shows for children, but not something that involves the whole family. And she said she was amazed at the dedication. She commented on how the actors had given 100% throughout the whole performance, and how they seemed to be enjoying themselves as much as the audience did. So after they left the pantomime, they were chatting about their experience and what they'd seen. And I'd asked them if they wouldn't mind popping into a local supermarket to buy a few bits and pieces that we needed for tea. When they were in the supermarket, they were talking about the amount of rehearsal time that must have gone into perfecting the pantomime, and she said hours and hours must have gone into preparing that. And just at that moment, the prince walked past from the pantomime and said, yes, absolutely, months of preparation went into that performance. And she was so amazed to see one of the actors walking past her in the supermarket, and she was so amazed that she rushed up to him and said, "Oh," she said, "it was so wonderful, you're so handsome."
So I was in Cinderella last year, and I was playing the little mice and the village people, and this year I'm also actually doing the panto, and this year it's Jack and the Beanstalk, and I cannot wait. I have watched the pantomime ever since I was a baby, and each year I just love it, and it looks so fun to do, and to be up there singing and dancing and being with my friends, and it was just a growing passion of mine that I just wanted to be up there, and last year I made that come true.
Hi. Hi. So watching JJ on stage in We Will Rock You was, to steal one of Georgia's words, is phenomenal. It was amazing to watch it on stage, the actual set, the design, all of the kids, they were so professional, they knew what they were doing, and it was like watching a West End stage show. It was just fabulous.
The Great Rock and Roll Panto Show was a production that my dad wrote based on Jason and the Argonauts, but also with various influences from popular culture of the time. I think the Dame came on saying, "Hi there, pop pickers, aren't I beautiful?" And the audience had to say, "Not half," like Tony Blackburn on the radio. But it was based on the Golden Fleece legend, Greek myth, and it was a show for all the family. I mean, not only just as audience members, but literally a show for all the family in my case, because my mum played the Lady Madonna, hence the song Lady Madonna was used. Lola, the drag queen, the Dame was my dad, so obviously they used the Kinks' Lola as a song in that, and that's where I got to be the love child of Keir on the Centre and Lola, the drag queen. It was such a group and community effort. It was brilliant. I mean, I've got friends who remember doing the lighting for it, who'd never been involved in theatre before, but they remember that particular show. I've got family members, uncles, aunties, cousins who were all involved as well. But I mean, there's still members of Tewkesbury Arts and Drama Society, TADS, and some former members of Manor Players that I still see in the street nowadays, and they will remember that show.
Yeah, the Roses has been a big part of my life, right from coming to shows with my mum, watching my family dance on the stage, seeing my children on the stage, watching school shows. We watch school shows and watch performances there. It is a major part of our lives, especially this year, because sadly I lost my mum, and me and Mum used to come and watch the ballets. So the last ballet, I think it was last Christmas, the Nutcracker, nobody could come with me, so I came by myself, and this poor little lady in the audience had come by herself. I sat talking to her, and all I did was cry the whole way through it. But it was lovely because you've got your memories. Lots of people, you know, by being in Manor Players. I've lost friends that aren't there no longer. Oh, sorry, that makes me cry. But it's just nice to come and remember them. Oh, sorry, I've lost it now. Yeah, so you come along, and I think I've been, because my mum, bless her, she left me some money, and so I've spent all my money on going to lots of shows this year, and that's what I've done. And I've gone with various friends, and some with Lindsay and my husband. And yeah, I think it's more important to do things than have things. And you know, Mum loved the ballet, and she watched every show that Lindsay did, of course. And then I had a friend Jenny, and she loved the Manor Players, and she was really good at it. I only went along to make sure the kids were safe, really. And we used to do our dancing, and everybody used to turn around, and they used to be facing me, and I used to think, oh, I should have turned that.
Theatre has a huge impact on everybody because it brings people together. A theatre production, a play, is a group of people coming together to tell a story to another group of people who've come together to hear it. Theatre has also got a huge impact on people's well-being. There's a massive amount of evidence that shows it can really improve how you feel about yourself, how you feel about where you live. Getting together with people and having fun is one of the most joyous things that you can do, and that's what the Roses can provide. For every £1 that's spent on theatre, it generates £1.40 in the local economy. And that's great news for restaurants, for the hotels, for the shops, for everybody who lives and works in Tewkesbury. The Roses has got such a fantastic history, and it's touched so many people's lives. It's really exciting to be here at what feels like the beginning of the next stage in its story, and I can't wait for what's next.